Hello and welcome to Q&A number 6 for the Healthy Human Project. I am your host, Coach Crane, and we've got some good questions today. First one, I'm gonna get right into it, comes from Greg, and he's got a couple here. It's basically when you're tracking your calories and you exercise, a lot of times certain apps like MyFitnessPal will say, hey, we detected on your fitness tracker that you exercised. Do you want to credit that exercise towards your day? Meaning, let's say you burned 300 estimated calories during your workout and your calorie goal is 2,000 calories a day. They're going to say, hey, now that you've burned 300 calories, you can eat 300 or 2,300 calories today. He's asking me, do you set it up that way, or do you try to not credit the exercise towards your calorie goal? And the way I recommend setting up your calorie goal is to never incorporate your exercise calories into your day. When you are setting up a calorie goal, whether it's in a calorie tracking app or you're using an online calculator to say, hey, how many calories do I burn a day on average, and therefore how many do I need to eat to lose 1-2 pounds per week? They should ask you your height, your weight, your age, and your activity level. And I like to be honest with my activity level. For instance, I recently started my 30-pound weight loss challenge, and I said, as much as I want to say I'm at least lightly active, the reality for me is that compared to my usual activity since having kids and since the pandemic started is I am sedentary. My progress is indicating that my metabolism is higher than I expected. I guess I'm on my feet enough. I'm not huffing and puffing and sweating throughout most days, but I guess I'm on my feet enough that I am burning more calories. But that's beside the point. When you're setting up your calorie goal, if you exercise lightly, 2 or 3 times per week, you should say that, and you should never count the 2 or 3 times you exercise towards that day of food. That's my opinion. If you want to, and you want to credit that, especially if it, for some psychological reason, helps you be more successful in staying consistent with your calories, and it helps you to say, I'm going to say I'm sedentary, even though I do work out 2 to 3 times per week, and then the 5 or 4 days that you are sedentary, those are just normal days, and you eat according to the sedentary goal. But then the 2 to 3 times a week that you do exercise, you credit those calories and get to eat another 2, 3, 400 calories on that day. If that's what you want to do, try it. And as long as you are making the estimated progress every week, nothing wrong with that. But in my opinion, the most accurate way to get your calorie goal is to be honest with your activity level, because there is something to say that someone who exercises every single week, 3 times per week, is going to have a higher metabolism than someone who some weeks works out 2 to 3 times, but then other weeks is completely sedentary the entire week. So anyway, I like to say, what are you on average? Are you sedentary? Are you lightly active, moderately active, and so on? And then pick whatever that is, and then never credit calories towards that. If you, for instance, are sedentary in real life and you say, I am going to go exercise, I'm sedentary most days, but hey, I'm going to go in once or twice a week, I'm telling you, don't count the calories of that workout. Like, your metabolism on average is a sedentary metabolism, so you should start at least by going with the sedentary calorie recommendation and not changing that. Hopefully that makes sense. The second part of Greg's question was, do you trust the estimation from calorie trackers? I don't have experience personally with an Apple Watch or a Whoop, but I have had at least 2 different types of Fitbits. And from what I can tell you of my clients telling me, my Apple Watch is telling me this, my Whoop is telling me that. Comparing those to my Fitbit, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that nearly every, if not every, calorie tracker out there is only accurate sometimes. The most accurate it seems to be is when you are walking, you are taking your dog on a walk, or you're walking around the neighborhood and you get your 10,000 steps, hooray. Your metabolism will be estimated to be higher that day than a day where you sit all day. Excuse me. But as soon as you start doing a high intensity workout, like a CrossFit workout, you're staying in place, you're doing burpees, you're doing dumbbell thrusters, but you're not moving, the tracker does not seem to do a very good job of detecting that your body is going up and down or pushing something really hard in place, working really hard under a heavy weight, like doing a squat or a deadlift. It just does not do a good job of being like, oh, we can tell that you are lifting heavy weight right now, or that you're doing a bunch of jump rope and burpee in place. So they'll often, and my wife got particularly frustrated with this when she was doing Gold's Fit at Gold's Gym. She would easily burn 500 calories in an hour-long workout at Gold's Fit, and the calorie tracker would be like, we detected that you did a couple hundred steps. Good job. You burned about 12 calories. So it definitely has its shortcomings. You know, I haven't had a Fitbit that I've used in 2 or 3 years. So maybe something's gotten better, but I'm going to bet that since all they basically do is sit on your wrist and have like a gyrometer or whatever it's called, detecting your movement, and you just can't really detect what's going on inside your body by what your wrist is doing. I'm going to say don't trust calorie tracker or a fitness tracker is whatever I'm trying to say. The ones on machines can sometimes be helpful, but most of the time you're on a machine, it says, hey, input your age, input your weight. They don't usually ask you for your activity level or your height. And that plays into what your estimated calorie expenditure is when you're running a mile or doing the elliptical at X resistance for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, so on. One machine is almost certainly going to tell you a different value than another. Is it that different? Who knows? But in my opinion, they're probably not worth tracking. And again, based on my recommendation, you shouldn't be worried about tracking the calories you're burning in your workouts anyway. What I write in the Healthy Human Project is, hey, in this circuit, we're going to burn 10 calories on the rower. We're going to burn 50 calories on an air bike or a Salt bike. That's not meant to be like, hey, keep track of how many calories you're burning, because it's good to know. It's about how long we're staying on that machine. Sometimes it's good to track for time, but it's actually usually better to track for time by calories, because the clocks on those things, they just run nonstop whether you're on it or off it. So a rower, for instance, if you hop on and do 10 calories, should take less than a minute. But let's say it takes 1 minute, you hop off, you go do a couple other movements, you come back, the timer has been running the entire time you were off that rower. So if I say, hey, I want you on the rower for 1 minute and then do these two exercises, come back to another minute, you have to pay attention. Okay, I'm starting to row at exactly, it's counting up, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Okay, so I have to go to 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Then the next time you hop on the rower, you're at 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Okay, now I gotta go to 8 minutes and 14 seconds. It's much easier to just track calories, because as soon as that rower stops, it's not burning calories anymore. So the next time you hop on, you should be like, okay, here we go. I know exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 calories, whatever it is. So that's why I recommend tracking calories sometimes in circuits instead of time, but it's not about the calories and knowing how much energy you're burning during your workout. It's more just understanding the pace that this is supposed to go. For instance, 10 calories is a very high intensity, go real fast. 50 calories is like, you're going to be on here a while, pace yourself. So that should be enough said about calories. We have a question from my friend Katie, and I want to read it exactly so it doesn't sound weird. How do I get a big booty? Apple emoji or peach emoji, whatever. To grow muscle, you can make this answer as complicated as you want to, and a lot of trainers will, to sell you on something, but I prefer to go with the simpler explanation, because honestly, consistency simply is going to outperform complexity inconsistently any day. So I like to stick with the simple thing. You need 2 things to grow muscle. You need the stimulus telling your body, hey, this needs to grow, and you need to supply the food, the nutrients, the building blocks needed to grow that muscle. So step 1 is the stimulus. Say body. We need to grow this muscle. So by that, you need to activate the glutes, and the glutes are the biggest muscle in the body. There are three of them: the glute max, medius, and minimus. The two big functions that you're going to see, and unfortunately I'm not going to take the time to edit this video and show a bunch of videos of these things, but you can Google it yourself to know what I'm talking about. Hip extension. Think I'm sitting right now. If I stood up, my hips would go from being bent like this. These are my thighs, for instance, my femurs, and this is my spine. If I stood up, my body would get straight. That's called hip extension. I'm bending at the hip and I'm extending it to go straight. It's not the best visual, but you get the idea. So hip extension, standing up and sitting down, or leaning over to lower something to the ground or pick it up off the ground, or both, which we do in a deadlift movement. Both those movements, so squats and deadlifts, are going to activate the glutes. If you lay on your back and have your back supported on a bench and you do that same movement but tilted over 90 degrees and put your hips more in line with gravity, you actually get the most activation from your glutes. So hip thrusters are proven to be the best movement you can do to activate the glutes, or really isolate the glutes is the better way to say it, but activate the glutes under the most amount of stress. So when you're squatting or deadlifting, you're activating your glutes, but you are sending more stress through the arms, the spine, the quads even. Whereas when you get in line with gravity and you're solely moving from the hips, so your legs are basically staying the same angle the entire time, your back is barely moving, as your hips go up and down. It's really all the stress is on your hips. So that's when your glutes are going to be the most activated. And the intensity of that stress at first really doesn't need to be that specific. For instance, if you get fatigued, let's say you do 2 or 3 sets in week number 1, but you do really light weight because you're scared of big weights, and you're easily able to do that hip thrust 10 times. But then about 15 reps in, you start to feel a burn, but you can keep going. So you go to 20 and you're like, I probably could have done a few more, but I got a good burn from 20. Great. That'll probably work for a few weeks. You can do, 1 set of 20. If you can get 20 the next 2, great. If not, you probably will be a little fatigued. You'll do like 20 the first set, 17, 18 the second set, and let's say 15 the third set. Next week you come in, you say, oh man, this is a lot easier. I can go up 5 pounds. So you do the same thing week 2, just 5 pounds heavier. Eventually, you do need to train to failure or exhaustion. You need to feel a burn. You need to stress that muscle tissue. Eventually, you're going to have to start really going up in weight because your glutes are going to get stronger and stronger week in and week out. And eventually, once your joints are conditioned to do that movement, you're not feeling soreness in the joints. You're maybe just feeling soreness in the muscles. Eventually, you probably won't feel a lot of stress in the muscle in the days to come. Like you won't have that soreness that lasts for 24 to 48 hours anymore. At that point is your really good sign that it's time to start lifting heavy. And if it's something you can do 10 times no problem, that's too light. You're going to have to go up in weight, and you're going to have to start reaching that failure point somewhere around 10 or 12 reps. Past that, again, once these weeks of training have gone by, you have to really start hitting that exhaustion point within that 10 or 12 rep range. Do you need to go all the way down all the way up heavy enough that you can only do it once or twice? No. It's good to, let's say, over a 6 or 8 week time period, say this week I'm going to do my 10 rep max wherever I hit failure at the 10 rep mark. Then the next week I'm going to do 8, the next week 6, the next week 4, the next week 2, the next week 1, just to max out. Again, you don't have to do that, but that strategy of starting lighter, doing more reps, and then working the next week to a little heavier but doing fewer reps, that's a good way to just create this cycle that you can repeat every 2 or 3 months, every that 6 to 8, sometimes up to 12 weeks, and just repeat that. Because after you reach that maximum point and you really test your max strength, the following week you need to recover. You're not going to be able to recover and go right back into max lift the week after and the week after and the week after. You have to drop back down, let your central nervous system recover. So you're going to go back down to, I'm going to do 10 or 12 reps this week. I'm going to do whatever weight that is. That weight is going to be more than it was the first time you found your 10 or 12 rep max. So now you're going, let's say 10 or 20 pounds heavier, and you're doing that 10 or 12 times. So that's how the cycle works of every single 2 or 3 months. You're getting stronger, but you're still allowing your body to recover by going lower in intensity and slowly progressing that intensity week after week. That should be a good answer to your question. But the other movement to the glutes is hip abduction, abduction. And that's basically lifting your leg out to the side. So if I'm standing here like this, kicking my leg outward, or for instance in a squat, your knees are going out as you go down, and the knees traveling outward is another easy way. When your legs are kicking out, your knees are going out from your body, from your midline. Same thing in a squat. Your knees start here, and as you squat down, they open up. They leave the midline of the body, they open up. Both of those movements, whether you're standing straight up and just kicking your straight leg out, or you're squatting down and your knees are falling out. Another one is you're in quadruped position, table pose for the yoga people, and you lift your leg out. That's called a fire hydrant drill in most exercises. I'm not sure what yoga pose that is, but anytime you're kicking your knee out from any position, you're abducting your hips. And that's where the glute medius and minimus are really isolating, activating the most. Your glute max is helping, but that's the primary job of the medius and minimus. So to widen your hips, to really get that round booty on the hips, the edges of your frame. Again, you can kind of think about from the front or the back. If you wanted to make your hips look wider, or at least smoother, more rounded, more hourglass, whatever, hip abduction would be the movement that you want to be. Again, same strategy as hip thrusters or hip extension, starting light, hitting those failure points early in the high rep ranges, but then over time going up. You're not really going to do 1 rep maxes or even 5 rep maxes with hip abduction. It's just not really a movement, and the muscles are not intended to go real heavy. But same strategy applies. Like, you can't just be doing 20 reps week in and week out for months on end and expect them to grow. Eventually you have to start finding a resistance band or a cable pulley that attaches around your ankle and going up to a certain amount of weight that you're hitting failure around 10 or 12 reps. As low as maybe 6 or 8. Probably never need to go any heavier than that and fewer reps. But you're going to have to start kind of going up and down between, let's say, 15 reps down to 6 or 8 reps, and then cycling that. So 1 week doing a little higher reps, lower weight, the next week a little heavier, the next week a little heavier, and the reps get lower in those weeks. That should explain that enough. We had another question. Rebecca asked, what kind of one-on-one expert advice / coaching / advising comes with the Healthy Human Project? So what I have said in the website, which I literally am working on again because I'm trying to find a design that I really like that explains this thing really well, because it is a complicated service and trying to get the verbiage right. But everyone that signs up for the Healthy Human Project is going to have access to an online forum, which I have created. It doesn't look great yet, so that's why it's not noticeable on the website. I haven't put a link in the menu for it yet, but I do have a forum that I am building. Since there's very few people in the program, I just reach out to them directly and say, hey, what's going on? How are things? So right now, the few people that are doing the Healthy Human Project, I just talk to directly. But once we get a dozen or so people in there, I will have the forum live so that we can all communicate in there. Like, I'll have a topic for every single workout, week 1, day 1, week 1, day 2, so on and so forth. So anyone who has questions about a specific workout, they can be put in that specific topic area. That'll be good for organization and being able to find like, hey, I have questions about this specific day, so I know I can go and find that exact workout in the forum and see if others have had the same issue, and if they do, I will. It's clear that I'm going to have to work on something, so I'll fix it. I'll make it more clear. I'll change the exercise or expand on the substitution options. So that's why I call this a project. Is there will probably be things that your feedback helps me change or improve. So by all means, I am going to make those changes as everyone lets me know that they need to be made. But in that forum, you'll be able to ask any questions you want to, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I will check on them every single day and answer them as soon as possible, either in written or video format. This is another way that we do one-on-one coaching. You get to ask your questions, and I explain it here every single week, so that anything that you have, whether it's nutrition or exercise, etc., I'm an open book. Ask me anything, and I'll answer it. I definitely want people to reach out to me through email or through messaging on the TrueCoach app. Just say, hey, I'm having an issue with this, or whatever it is. Like, please just use me as much as you want to. I will let you know when it gets to be a problem, especially if I get the same question every single week. I'll be like, see last week's video. Nutrition is probably the big one, though, that people are going to want one-on-one advice for, and that is what I've put in the Healthy Human Project product description, is that nutrition advice is available for those who ask. One of the big things I've learned over the most recent years is that nutrition is a touchy subject, and it might just be my social media bubble that I'm in, but the more registered dietitians I follow, the more psychologists, therapists that I follow, the more I just get the feeling that we need to just stop encouraging people to diet, encouraging people to even think about their nutrition until they're ready to think about their nutrition. They're ready to try a new diet. So I've kind of said on the Healthy Human Project description, if you want nutrition advice, please reach out to me, but I am not going to email you and say, hey, let's talk about your nutrition. Hey, I want you to try eating like this now that you're on the Healthy Human Project. I'm just not going to assume anyone wants to hear that they need to make changes to their nutrition. I'm going to let that come to me until I have reason to do otherwise. But it is in the product description that if you want nutrition advice, please reach out to me and ask. I will tell you what your calorie goal is. I will give you diet ideas if you don't want a calorie track, if you don't want to eat high carb, if you want to try keto, want to try the Mediterranean diet. I will support you in whatever you want to try. I will just give you the facts of what I know to be true about that diet. For instance, someone who's maybe wanting to try vegetarian or vegan, I'm going to let them know like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And as far as climate change and the health of the planet goes, that's amazing, and I totally support that decision. But if someone was like, I want to build as much muscle as possible and I want to do it eating nothing but plants, I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to substitute as much as you can, or supplement as much as you can, some protein powders, because plants just do not have a rich composition of amino acids. It is important to get an adequate, if not optimal, amount of amino acids every single day, especially if building muscle is your goal. And the best source of all the amino acids, including the essential ones, is going to be some sort of animal meat. It doesn't have to be red meat, pork, things that people for either moral or religious reasons avoid. Fish is usually a universal staple for anyone who's okay with eating animal products, but wants to avoid certain controversial animal food groups. So anyway, I support anyone who wants to try keto. I'll just tell you, it's not something that you should do for years on end, but by all means, if you want to try it, go for it. Mediterranean and the zone diet are kind of most highly recommended diets that you can try. So I'll support anyone who wants to try anything in nutrition. I will just tell you what I know to be true about the science, research, consequences, benefits, cons of trying those different diets. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, as much one-on-one coaching as you have questions about, I'm happy to provide. And again, the nutrition one, which is the one I think most people are going to want individualized questions asked or answered for them, I'm going to let those come to me until otherwise, because it's just a really sensitive thing for a lot of people. I think a lot of people in the world, we're all familiar with this statistic. The last few decades, or really the last half a century, the obesity rate just goes up and up and up. So I know a lot of people are just kind of getting tired of a lot of the fat phobic rhetoric that there is in the media, on social media, movies, etc. And I definitely support that. Like, it's something that we need to be aware is not healthy. In fact, I recommend everyone read Health at Every Size. That's going to make you rethink the health or unhealth of certain weights. And it exposes a lot of the health bias, or the exposes a lot of the just general biases that the medical community has against people who are overweight. So again, the book's called Health at Every Size. It's written by Dr. Lindo Bacon. The book is published under Linda, but they changed their name to Lindo a few years ago. So depending on what you see, you might see Linda, you might see Lindo, but Health at Every Size, outstanding book. But yeah, we just need to be more sensitive and accepting of what diet culture has done to a lot of people. So I definitely want to get away from the quote unquote diet culture. I still use the word diet a lot because I guess I've just been using it my entire life. But I try to change it as much as I can, talk about nutrition instead of diets. But technically, your diet is also your nutrition. It's what you eat on the regular. So it's just one of those ambiguous terms. So anyway, I let those questions come to me. I will support anyone in whatever nutrition venture they want to try. But I also want to be sensitive to not trigger anyone into thinking negative thoughts about themselves, about their body, about their past failures or successes by imposing nutrition or diet advice on them. So hopefully that makes sense. I should have brought water. That's why I'm kind of like having to swallow, as I didn't bring water with me today. But I think that is all the questions that we had, and we have a 30-minute video. I did it again. I talked too much, but navigation will be provided below on this video so that you can scroll to find your answer, of course. And if you are with me right now and have watched this entire thing, man, give yourself a high five in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure. I have to go start dinner for my kids. Whew. Hopefully you didn't hear them too much. The babysitter's right below me on the floor downstairs, and I can tell the infant's been crying. Oh, fun stuff being a parent. Thank you for joining, everyone. Signing off. Leave your questions that you want me to answer next week in private messages to me or in the comments. Thanks. See you later.